Hello, I'm Matt Peterson.
And I'm Rich Trappier.
And this is episode 52 of History on the Table. Hello, Rich. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. It's been a minute. It always feels like it's been a minute, probably because we record monthly. That's why it seems so long. But here we are, back in the old podcasting chair. How you been, buddy?
Good. Episode 52. We are closing in quickly on episode 100, I guess.
I guess so. Rounded that corner. Here we go. That's right. That's exactly right. Well, hey, over 52 episodes we've mostly kept the same format, but we've added some things and little things like that. But for the first time tonight, we're trying something new, which you'll see just a new segment, a little more detail on what, instead of just saying like, hey, I bought this thing, like what new things are getting us excited? What are we looking forward to in the hobby? That type of thing. You'll see that. If you like it, let us know. If you want us to change it, all that. But anyways, it's us. We're here. We're here to talk about war games.
And by the time this drops, it will officially be spooky season. You've been talking about it for a while. You're one of those people that talks about it too early, I think.
Oh man, well, I'm already I'm balls deep into it already though. Like I've read some spooky stuff. I've played some spooky stuff. I'm all in on spooky season. We're gonna cover that. After we talk about the war games, we push all the war games off the table and we talk about things like spooky season and I don't know. Yeah. Whatever else tickles our fancy.
I played a war game today. I even played it with another person. It was wild.
I saw a picture of this. I'm very jealous of what you played.
Yeah. So I played Dien Bien Phu today. A couple turns of it anyway. My daughter's been interested in it for a while, and she's been wanting to learn it. So we got it out. I was trying to remember. I'm going to scroll down here. When did we review that? Episode 25. So that was a while ago. That was like 2 years ago, basically. And so I don't think I've played it since then. So, it was a little rusty for me too, but we played a couple turns of it, just enough to really, see what it's all about so that she could get an understanding of it. Next time we set it back up, it'll, we'll be good to go.
That's outstanding. Yeah. So Dien Bien Phu is a game from Kim Kanger covering the Vietnamese siege of the French outposts in Dien Bien Phu, kind of pre-Vietnam.
Yep. And Kim's even got himself on a counter.
It is a brilliant game where the French are doing this kind of really cool supply management through the airdrops, what they're kind of sacrificing, what they're deciding to try to bring in.
Yeah. And that's what actually she was most disappointed because we didn't get to that part of it. She was really excited about the, planes getting shot down and aborting and everything and losing supplies and all that good stuff.
And the kind of like not a gimmick, but each side kind of has its own feature, and like the Vietnamese side are advancing these the trench lines, right, to conduct their siege.
Yeah, one of the things,
a great game.
Yeah, one of the things I thought was really cool is I distinctly remember the very first time I set the game up. I think I even posted it on Twitter or whatever at the time. I was like, there is no way. You look at all the French guys and not that many Vietnamese guys, and you say there's no way the Vietnamese can win this battle. And we set the game up, and she was playing the French, and she said the exact same thing. I'm like, wait and see.
Nice. I love that. Yeah. I love to hear that. Cool. That's awesome that you played it with your daughter.
Yeah.
Good. I played something pretty recently. It was awesome. We don't normally talk about miniature stuff here, but this is big nasty things, shooting big nasty weapons at each other, so I think it fits. I played a 3-player game of Kill Team.
Ooh, how's that work?
Which was
just free for all?
Just like regular Kill Team, free for all.
Yeah. Yeah,
it's 3 players, so I guess it could lend itself to bad feel situation. But we had one player. I was playing with 2 Zacks. So one of the Zacks was playing the Necrons, and Necrons will regenerate. And he had like 3. He had like 1 free regenerate. His overall, like his big bad could regenerate, and then one other thing was allowing him to regenerate. So even if we killed them, they would pop back up. So I think the other Zach and I both realized that's really strong, and we kind of pounced on him. And it was very good. It had been, I think, about a year, maybe a little less, maybe a little more. I don't quite remember the last time I played. It was really good. Kill Team is a very great, solid tactical design.
How like how big is Kill Team? That's a smaller version of Warhammer, right?
Smaller version, and you only bring in about 10 units.
Okay, cool.
Like, and that depends. Like, if you're playing like a faction that is weaker than a Space Marine, you're going to bring in like 10 units.
Okay.
Whereas something strong might only bring in 6 units or something like that.
And what was the table size?
It is. Oh, I looked it up. It's like maybe it's 3x3 or maybe a little smaller like that, 2x3 or something like that. I don't remember what the size is, but because we had to put 2 boards together.
Okay.
And it fit on my 5x3 table with plenty of room on the sides. So
cool.
Yeah, it was awesome. Kill Team. It's my roots in tactical combat come from things like ASL and those types of things, but it's interesting to you scratch a similar itch, but even more zoomed in, and still some of the tactical design elements kind of come through. It's very different games. I'm not trying to say that Kill Team is the same as ASL, but they're scratching similar itches.
Oh yeah.
But Kill Team, brilliant design. It's really good.
I like mini schemes. I play Star Wars Legion. If I didn't already have that, I could see myself playing Warhammer or 40K or one of those. And then historical minis too. I would love someday to have a bunch of little plastic ships that I can sail around a table and shoot at each other.
Sure, Chain of Command has always tempted me, which would be kind of equivalent to Kill Team, but with historicals, and that's a highly received, well-received miniatures game with smaller engagements. You're not bringing like a massive army. It's, I don't know, a couple squads.
Yeah.
And I've painted up some fins for that, and I have the rulebook lying around somewhere. I just don't know if you wanted to play with.
Cool.
Or terrain or any of the other elements.
Right.
But that's another one I'd like to try on the historical front.
Yeah.
But other than our featured game and a whole bunch of Euros and crap like that, that's about it for me in the shooty things. What about you?
Yeah, I've played a few other strictly online, but they still count. So, and all of these are like, barely played a turn or something. So I am playing in the Next War Poland tournament.
Nice.
So we've played, well, we haven't finished our first turn on that one. Oh, no, I should take that back. We finished our first turn, but we haven't finished the first round, which is 3 turns. So it's fun. We're both kind of, I think he's played it before. I have not. So really this is round 0 of the tournament. It doesn't really count yet. So it's just a chance to kind of get your feet wet and see how it works. So it's good. Nice small map. The vassal module, somebody, did some work on it to make it a little more streamlined and everything. But it's obviously going to be much better just on the table. Everything is right there. The vassal module, like I said, they streamlined it, but there's parts of it that are still kind of weird. So, but I am playing that. I'm playing a game of the U.S. Civil War. Have you heard of that game before?
Yeah, I'm very interested in it.
Yeah, you should try it sometime. And yeah, super early into that one. I think we're still in the first. And I think we finished our first turn on that one as well. But that one's totally my fault for just not getting to it. And Empire of the Sun as well. So we're early on in that one. But all of those are games that I'm just. Well, Next War Poland we were playing live. The other 2 I'm just playing by email.
Well, Empire of the Sun, we'll probably talk a little bit later in terms of the vassal module.
Yeah.
And I've been, I've had plenty of Rally the Troops stuff going on, but I got to say, over the summer, when things were cooled down and I wasn't playing a ton of Rally the Troops, but I've been firing Nevsky back up on demand. Just still, what a great game.
Absolutely.
Just like Nevsky, and the more I play it, the better I get at it.
I think I said in the last show that by this time I probably would have played Plantagenet, but that did not happen this month. So
yeah, it keeps. That's a good segue. It was almost my the thing that has me hot blooded. Do you want to take a cold stab at the song tonight, or do you just want to tease that? And
yeah, usually I get a pitch pipe before I sing. Hot blooded, try me and see. I got a fever of 103.
He's got board games over 103. Yeah, we have to be legally distinct, but I love it. That's brilliant. We don't need anything else.
I think we can play like 5 seconds of a song without having to pay copyright, so we're good to go.
Someone ask an attorney. Yeah, I loved it. Thank you, Rich. That was brilliant and beautiful and way better than I could ever do. So thank you. So yeah, our new segment, that's Hot Blooded. What's boiling our blood? What are we all horned up for? What's new? What game news dropped that has us all fired up? What's new on the shelf? So a little more the goal here is what I always thought is, I love saying like I got this new game, right? But sometimes it's just like I got this new game, I don't know anything about it. So, Rich, cut the music. Stop singing.
All right,
hear me out. Okay, now turn some redemption music back on.
Redemption music. I need some redemption music.
You know what? It's been a long time since you and I have talked about Compass games in a positive light. We give them a hard time.
That's not true. I talked about Barlev last month or month before. That's a Compass game.
Fair. But we are harsh on them. Let me put it this
Absolutely.
way: we have not talked positively about like a new release or something new coming out from Compass, because Compass has firmly.
Our default is we wait and see on all Compass games. They don't get the benefit of that out ever.
Exactly what I was going to say. So, something new is on the way. I didn't kickstart it because I refused to kickstart a Compass game. For the first time in Compass, Cold. Now, the lineage here is well established, and when the news came out, I received quite a few messages that, hey, Russia Besieged is getting a Finnish expansion. Now, the expansion is not standalone, but Rich, I have to tell you, I am very fired up for Russia Besieged and Russia Besieged Finnish expansion. Now, Russia Besieged is here.
So is this an actual new game, or is this one of Compass's re-releases, whatever they call it? Signature edition.
I don't know if it's... I think the Signature edition postdates the deluxe edition of Russia Besieged.
Okay.
But Russia Besieged is the third edition of a game that designed by Art Lupinacci.
Okay.
And it originally came out in like 2004, and I think it had some other design releases. But it has great reviews. And what's interesting is I'm flipping through massive counters, like everything's blowing up. If your eyes are going out, this is a game for you, let me tell you, because everything is very legible, very big font. But I open up the rule book, and there's no summary of what the game really is. It just says it's a 2-player game covering the Eastern Front, and then it immediately dives into, there are no counters in the game for Persia, Iraq, Lebanon, and Syria. Like, you have 4 sentences describing the game, and then you turn the page, and you're straight into the sequence of play and stuff.
Okay.
So, what Russia Besieged is, it's a strategic game covering the Eastern Front in its entirety. And what's particularly interesting here is, like, the Russians have... the name, not warehouse, but like manufacturing units, and oil is relevant. So to some extent,
real strategic.
Yes.
Okay.
And so the rules are, I'm very excited to hopefully get this to the table this month, but it's like 46 pages of rule, and the deluxe edition comes with like an FAQ and a bunch of examples of play, like its own separate document guiding you through this game. But yeah, it's army scale. And it's the kind of it's Eastern Front. It's Germany has some auto win conditions; they're hard to meet. And then it's kind of how long is Germany do you want to turn up the offensive before the Russian war machine kicks on and starts kicking your ass back? And then how long can you make a defense?
Okay.
So yeah, I'm very excited for this. I had actually not heard of Russia Besieged until people started telling me about the Finnish expansion. Based off what it sounded like, you hadn't heard of it.
Yeah, right? I don't think I knew anything about it. It's one of those games that's got a name and you hear it and okay, that sounds like a war game, but I don't have any specific knowledge of this one.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, if you were to like open up a box or whatever, I think the first thing you would say is, holy shit, that's big font. Like I can't even explain like how big the font is on everything. I think you could probably have like a 20-page rule book. But that's good. And I'm just very excited to see how this plays. Obviously, I'm most excited to get the Finns introduced somehow. There are Finnish-only scenarios, or I shouldn't say Finnish-only. There are scenarios that are more focused in Finland, is what it looked like, but Finland itself is not a standalone game, so you still have to play Russia Besieged, which makes sense because it's covering the whole Eastern Front. And that's, Russia Besieged.
Cool.
Deluxe Edition and Russia Besieged Finnish expansion.
So you own this game, or you're going to pre-order it? What's the deal with it?
Yeah, so Finnish expansion is just not here yet because I didn't get it through Compass's Kickstarter.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm waiting on a copy from a third party to get here. And
Gotcha.
then I have Russia Besieged Deluxe Edition.
Okay.
You could have ordered Deluxe Edition with the Finnish expansion, but I like Noble Knight or someone had one with like a tear in the shrink wrap for cheaper than what Compass was selling it for in the Kickstarter, so I just got it through that. So I have that, and that's what I've been messing around with very, very lightly. But yeah, I'm super interested. I would say I'm adequately excited. I'm adequately horned up about Russia Besieged.
So you're warm-blooded.
I would say I'm fairly hot-blooded. Actually, it'll be nice to go back to. I mean, I guess the last like really good Compass thing I played was Brotherhood and Unity, unless I'm forgetting something. But that's the only thing that's coming to mind.
Yeah.
So it's been a while.
Yeah. Cool.
And they're on their, this is like the third version of it. So there's not a lot of. Sometimes my biggest issue with Compass games is how much playtesting's gone into it.
Yeah.
And how much errata are you going to have the first go around? The good news here is you're on third edition of a game that people are passionate about that I just don't think there's a lot of errata out there for it.
Well, they've done years of playtesting on Battle Hymn 2.
I'm cold-blooded on Battle Hymn Volume 2. What a disappointment. Someone brought up Battle Hymn the other day.
Yeah.
I was trying to like find some reference for like something I saw like 4 years ago about it, and I'm like 10 minutes into my search like on Facebook going through a Compass post, and I just stopped. I'm like, what the hell am I doing? Why do I even this game is never going to see the light of day. What do I even care about this 4-year-old post and like provide a link to it?
Yeah.
I don't care. So I closed out and said I'm not touching this again.
Yeah.
All right, Rich, what's got you fired up?
October 31st. October 31st. It's not just Halloween, it's also Reformation Day. So
that's right.
Yeah, every year, except for last year, because I had a guy flake on me and we had to end up canceling and pissed me off. But every other year, right around Reformation Day, we play Here I Stand at my house. So we're all set up to go this year. I've got 5 other players ready to go. We're going to play all day. And honestly, this is just like one of my highlights of the year. That's why it pissed me off so much last year when we had to cancel at the last minute. Because, you got a bunch of people that are committed to playing this, and then you have to stop. So, but we're back at it this year. We're going to play on October 28th. I'm going to have everybody over, and I don't even know who I'm going to play yet. I'm thinking I might pick the Ottomans because I haven't played them in a while and just want to do something different. But no matter what I do, this is always this, and usually once a year I host a Twilight Imperium game. Those are usually like my 2 biggest days of the year for gaming. So super excited about it. If you haven't played Here I Stand, you can play it online. I'm not currently playing, though. After the last game, I took a break from playing online, playing by email. You can play it that way, but sit 6 people down at a table that are committed to playing for 10 or 12 hours if it takes that long. Usually doesn't, but 6 people that are committed to playing, it's going to be a great day of gaming, even if you've never played it before. I mean, I've played with multiple players that have never played it before, and a couple turns in, they've got it figured out. You play your faction, you know what to do. You may not be the best at it, but you'll still have a good time. So that's what I'm excited about right now, because it's Here I Stand month.
Awesome, I love it. I'll permit this hot-bloodedness on a 20-year game, or however old the game is now, whatever it is, doesn't matter. I'll permit this because I agree 100% that a game day of Here I Stand, and we've said it before, is just hard to top. Like, that's just a solid day of historical gaming. I mean, I think Republic of Rome tops it, but there's not much that tops it.
Yeah, but I don't own Republic of Rome. If I did, I'd host that once a year for sure, too.
No, I think Here I Stand adequately hot-blooded for. Good.
Yeah.
Be interested to hear it go. I remember your last one getting canceled, and we'll see how you did in a month when we record. I guess we'll have to record after the 28th. That's probably fine.
Yeah. Won't be recording on that day. I'll be too tired.
Just give live up. Record as you play. What could go wrong? All right, Rich, I made an executive decision. I moved your book to our recommended reading because we read the same thing, and I think we both read it for our featured game.
Sure. So we have read nothing.
We read nothing. I've actually read a shit ton, but it's all tied in.
But nothing that we would talk about here. So
stick around for that juicy little tidbit because you're going to hear about that later, folks. It's spooky season. Hold on. We'll get to it. All right. So, Rich, our featured game this month, I'm very excited what the pick was.
Yes.
And that's what we're alluding to. So our reading we did was for our featured game. We're there. We are here. We're talking about our featured game.
Yeah, so did we pick this one or the fans pick it? I can't remember.
This was voted in.
All right, so it's a big game. It's more than one game. It's On to Richmond 2, the sequel. Yes. The Union Strikes South. So it's a new game by Multiman Publishing, obviously because it's 2. You can tell it's a re-release of a sort. You'll talk about that in a second. But Joseph Balkowski, Ed Beach, Chris Withers. If you're fans of the great campaigns of the American Civil War, you know those names. Art by Nicholas Escooby and Charlie Keebler. If you are fans of Wargaming and M&P, you know those names. I don't know the artist names ever, but I know those 2 names. So,
yep.
And like I said, it's brand new. It just came out 2023. I think I've had my copy for 2 months. They ran into an issue with some of the maps, so they actually stopped sending games out for a while. So some of the people, I don't know if everybody that pre-ordered it has it by now, probably. But yeah, it's a brand new game is all I'm getting at.
Awesome. The one thing I'll just add to that, because I ended up getting my copy through AGR Sales.
Oh, okay.
I'm not affiliated anyway, but AGR Sales is a great place. Grey Rooster Sales is a great place to pick up games if you miss like pre-order prices. Mm-hmm. And I asked them, I said, does this have the new maps? If you're curious about that, M&P did not send any games directly to third-party vendors until the new maps came in.
Oh, okay.
Now, that's different if you're buying from like Noble Knight and someone has traded in. But for a third-party vendor who bought from M&P, my understanding is all those third-party copies had the corrected maps. And even if you have the wrong maps, it's not that big a deal. M&P is just like some other publishers we've talked about where they recut their maps when they found out that they weren't cut correctly. But I'm not still salty about something from 2 years ago. Don't worry about me.
Mine was kind of funny though because I got it, I'm guessing 2 months ago, approximately. It doesn't matter, but I didn't open it until about a month ago, and I started laying it out, and I got everything out, and I looked, I'm like, oh yeah, I totally forgot about the maps because I had those set aside somewhere, so I didn't notice until I got it out, and then I grabbed the old maps. So I don't know what to do with the other maps. It's weird. Am I supposed to throw those away? I can't throw stuff like that away. It's too weird.
You know, I've started throwing game boxes away, like my last 100-yard boxes. Trashed them.
I throw away the inserts, like especially GMT does a lot of those weird little inserts. Those always go straight to the trash. But yeah, I think even like if I've got an expansion and I put, I'm off on a rabbit trail now. If I combine an expansion and a main game, I still have trouble throwing the expansion box away.
No, I just decided I need more space for more games. Yeah. But speaking of more space for more games, there's 3 games in this box, Absolutely. As you alluded to. So we have a reprint of both Grant Takes Command and On to Richmond. And the Grant Takes Command reprint is especially welcomed with the new beautiful art encounters. And then we have a new game, and that's the Petersburg campaign. So On to Richmond 2 is basically McClellan's Peninsula campaign covering 1862 in the the American Civil War. Grant Takes Command 2 is the spring and early summer portion of 1864. And then the Petersburg campaign is really a tack on to Grant Takes Command 2, basically extending that time period to the rest of 1864, 1865, leading up until like the retreat to Appomattox, things like that. All said, there's 30 scenarios plus 30 scenarios in the box, and then if you wanted to play like the grand campaign stuff and combine those, that's there as well. So
and
it's nice.
You can combine it with other games as well. Stonewall Jackson's
Yeah, that's
Way.
The grand stuff. Yep. Yeah, so a lot in this box. It's really the counters for 2 games. You have a set of counters for OTR On to Richmond, and then you have a set of counters for Grant Takes Command and Petersburg campaign, and then you have 4 maps. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff here.
So have you had a chance to play something from all three?
Yes.
Okay.
I only one scenario from Petersburg campaign, and that's what we played at the Kansas City Historical Gaming Group this morning, actually. So I'm coming in fresh off a thorough butt kicking. I was stomped. And yeah, I played a little bit of everything.
Petersburg is the only one that I have not played at all. So,
but without getting too far before we talk about like how the game plays and stuff, I'll tell you that Petersburg feels the most different.
Interesting.
And I think one, it's not the reprint; it's a new design.
Sure.
So I think they're trying out some new things, and also Petersburg campaign, you lose a lot of. The first thing I noticed looking over the scenarios, I've only played one. I didn't play the advanced scenario. We did the 5th offensive. So the last offensive before like the retreat type of Maddox. The cast of characters is so different at that point. And one thing I like in particular, I like seeing like George Thomas or Meade's present or something like that. But at this point, especially on the Confederate side, it's a bunch of nobodies.
Mm-hmm.
And I shouldn't say nobodies, but it's so different. And the Confederate player objectives in a lot of the scenarios is just kind of hold on.
Sure.
And then specifically in scenario 10, which is the last standard game scenario, it's a retreat out of there. You're retreating into Appomattox, and it's a fighting withdrawal. And I mean, that's not too different than other late war games, but it definitely something about Petersburg campaign, just reading through the scenarios when we were trying to find what we were going to play this morning, it just felt different, if that makes sense. Not in a bad way, but just not the same. So we've talked about GCACW a good amount. We're both huge fans.
Oh yeah.
GCACW is
Did we ever officially do our best series list? I know that we were bringing that around, but it got to be too many things. It could be a series, but
and then too many debates of what is a series.
I think GCACW probably would have won.
I think so. If you leave it up to a fan vote, I think so. I mean, I think it definitely. I mean, it's always performed well in our March Madness bracket, right? When we combine all the GCACW games into one, which probably helps it some. But the characteristics of a GCACW game is, and I will talk generally here, is divisional. Generally, you're issuing orders to divisions. That'll change. Sometimes it's regiments, sometimes it's quasi-divisions, and then obviously you have cav that you're commanding. And it is campaign-based, as the series title would have you believe. So it is very zoomed out. You are maneuvering over large swaths of terrain, and combat is really just kind of comes down to roll a die, big retreats, come back, and you got to wait until your men kind of recoup their strength before you do anything again. Maneuvering and your decisions of where you park your armies is one of my favorite things and just a defining characteristic of the game for me. And kind of my favorite thing of GCACW is the fatigue. So as you're activating these divisions, they will increase their fatigue. And at a certain point, once you have 2 fatigue, and as you move into 3 fatigue, you're extending their marches, for that day. And that may cause them to exhaust. If they're already exhausted, they might lose manpower. Stragglers get left behind. That type of thing.
Yeah, that's the big thing about this game, like you said, is the fatigue. So every time you end an activation, both players are going to roll to see who gets to go next. So, if I get lucky with my dice or the DRMs are in my favor or whatever, I can go a bunch of times in a row, and I can pick anyone I want. I can keep picking the same guy and march him further and further, but those guys are just going to get tired out, get less effective. And the strategy is how far do you want to push your guys before they just get so exhausted that they are no longer effective.
Absolutely. I'd say one other thing, big picture, that GCACW does extremely well, and I guarantee I know people find this frustrating, is the way it captures the uncertainty of command in the American Civil War's randomness.
Oh, yeah.
So let's say you activate I don't know. Pick a division. All the names are escaping me. Crawford's division, right? So you're gonna activate. I think that's actually cavalry. Doesn't matter. You activate Crawford, right? And you roll. You fatigue him, and then you roll for movement, and then you roll a 1.
Mm-hmm.
And depending if that's Union or Confederate, you'll get some modifiers, and so you might move 1 or 2, and then whether or not you use a leader, like a core leader, you can kind of boost movement to by using a core leader to get some extra die roll modifiers. You might be moving 1 or 2 hexes, and so it's like, oh, damn it, I just moved him to fatigue 2, and all he's doing is moving 1 hex. Oh, now I'm going to have to put him on fatigue 3.
Yeah.
But when you read about the Civil War and all the shit that would constantly go wrong because 100,000 men present on the peninsula and you don't have instant communication, it makes sense. And I think it makes sense. Like it's beautiful how well it captures the chaos and uncertainty of the Civil War in the time period. So the dice are random and they will punish you, but boy, do I love it.
Yeah.
Like it's roll to move. Is what I'm saying. You roll to move.
And the game also has a lot of chrome. So
yeah,
the Confederates are always going to be faster.
Yep.
But it does come down to the dice at the end. And it's even more than just rolling to move. Every game is a little different based on, the leaders that they had at that time. But On to Richmond is the one that I've played the most. And so like the Union leaders, normally, you can activate a guy and activate the guys around him. But depending on what your initiative roll was, you may even activate the leader and he can only bring one other guy with him. Which means if you want to move his 3 or 4 guys that are all in his formation together, it's going to take more turns, more time to do all of that. So that's one thing that, the game bakes in, more than just leader ratings or anything like that, but what the performance was of the different leaders on the map at the time. And then, hold
on. Before you go on to your
Sure.
next thought, I just want to point out the reason that's important is a lot of times, if you're not playing like a grand, or not grand, like an advanced scenario,
mm-hmm.
if you're just playing like a standard game scenario, a lot of times it comes down to control of hexes. And because of maneuvering in this game, you also want to control river crossings, you want to get across creeks, you want to use the terrain to your advantage. In tons of scenarios, you want to be the first one to move to X.
Absolutely.
You want to be, so if you can group up those group activations by activating a core and you activate, everyone in that core, that means you're activating 3 guys before you roll initiative again to see who gets to go next. So that's why that's important. Your comment about like you may have to wait longer, you take more turns to get there. You want to, in some games, you want to be activating as quickly as possible to get the jump on the enemy. That's not always the case. Like sometimes you're on the defensive and you kind of want to see how they're going to move. But I just wanted to like chime in like why that kind of timing of activations is so important in GCACW.
Yeah. And the roll to move is, honestly, it's historically accurate. Every Civil War book that I've ever read has talked about guys that were supposed to be here at 9:00 and they're 2 hours late and they screwed up the whole attack. Stonewall Jackson is known for having they called them the foot cavalry because they moved so fast. But during the battles of the On to Richmond, they didn't.
Where is Jackson?
Yeah, I'm reading the book and I'm thinking he just rolled a 1 on his movement roll.
well, that's notoriously when Jackson took his nap, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the one guy, we'll talk about the book later, but the one guy walks up, he's like, "You're all supposed to be in a hurry," and I walk up and I see Stonewall Jackson just leaning up against a wall talking to a guy.
Yeah, and there's other ways where the game captures that flavor of the American Civil War,
mm-hmm.
and I'm going to let you talk about it because I know it's one of your favorite mechanics in all of gaming, and that's cav retreats.
Oh, absolutely. I think GCACW and maybe a been Atlanta as ours was the first one I played, but in any case, the series has the same basic cav rules. But that was the first time that I ever said, this is the first game that cav makes a lot of sense because basically, you can park a tiny little cav unit and his job is just to slow down the big infantry units. They approach him and he's it's going to cost him something. He'll get fatigued and disordered and all that, but he can basically stop a big infantry unit dead in its tracks and suck up their movement points.
Mm-hmm.
Which, when you're already, roll to move, your movement points are already precious anyway. It can be really frustrating because here I got like this big 18th strength point guy, and he needs to get up to this bridge because, like you said, you want to be there first. And here's this little 1 strength point horsey guy just standing in his way, and the cav runs away, and the infantry just stands there, and it's so frustrating, but it's so good.
Yeah, and it can also matter for attacks because you can attack in really 3 ways in this game. But let's say you're marching and you want to attack the hex you come up with. If you don't want a negative modifier, you have to spend more of your movement points. So if you have 7 movement points, you spend 2 getting there. Then you're going to spend another 4 to get a +1 modifier and do what's called a prepared attack. Well, Cav can eat that up too. They can eat 3 of your movement points if they roll well enough when they do their Cav retreat. And so those movement points can not only matter for maneuverability, but also because it's the Civil War, you don't have the command flexibility and the maneuverability of foot units to be able to roll up on a spot and immediately deploy into attack. So you have to use those movement points to be prepared for it. The other way you can attack is you can do an assault. So you can activate a core commander in a hex.
Already next to their target, yeah.
Then everything in that hex, if you roll under their command rating, can go in and attack that hex. And then if you are playing a scenario that has an army or a I can't even remember what the other thing is called. Most of the time it's army. An army leader present, they can then, once you're successful in your assault, then you can roll under the army leader's command rating and bring in adjacent hexes, and that's how you get these big stacks. Yeah. So and that again is just thematic because you read about these attacks. I mean, just look at Antietam, right? If Union forces at Antietam were on the same page, that battle is a bloodbath. But because you have these staggered attacks and nothing is working, they're not working in unison, it turns into effectively a draw. And that's captured so well here because you declare that I'm doing the assault, you fatigue them, you can get everyone ready, but not every division commander is going to be up to snuff or get the right orders or activate or whatever. And it's everything like that is just captured so well in GCACW.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's a game that really rewards maneuver, and it's not a tactical game, but in a lot of ways it kind of feels like it because maneuver is so important in this game, especially when you play the advance game, then supply routes come into it as well. Mm-hmm. And, you can raid the enemy's railroads and supply depots and things like that and really knock them off their guard, force them to go back. There's a lot of cool things you can do, but the maneuver in this game in general is just really good. In the series, I should say, but also in this particular
you can't,
games.
Other than like thematically, it's hard to break out. I'll just go ahead and say it. Like Petersburg, I had a blast today. Mm-hmm. Just looking at the core game scenarios, the base game scenario. So when there are advanced rules in GCACW, those are typically long overarching campaigns when you're talking about like capturing whole counties, and usually you're doing more than just, all right, you're doing more than the 4 days of the Battle of Antietam.
Yeah. A typical scenario.
It was not 4 days, it was 1 day, but the 4 days leading up to it.
Typical scenarios for the basic are going to be, it's like 3 or 4 victory hexes and you're fighting over those.
Yeah. So Petersburg has a lot. I feel like they ramp it up and they even they'll bring in a lot of advanced rules, that's present in other games, but they're covering like 4 days of action, sometimes less, but I don't even know where I was going with this train of thought. Oh, I was gonna say that you're right. When we talk about GCACW, when we talk about On to Richmond 2, it's hard not to talk about the whole series. And there's, broadly speaking, there's not a huge amount of difference other than topic between Roads to Gettysburg and On to Richmond 2, right? Mm-hmm. Other than what I was saying was Petersburg doesn't necessarily feel like my favorite.
Okay.
Now, again, one standard play. And I read through all the standard scenarios to see what I wanted to play at KC Historical Gaming Group.
So like I said, I haven't played Petersburg. Tell me more about why it's so different.
The writing's on the wall. right? I mean,
okay, sure.
The peak of GCACW for me, and we actually talked about this a little bit today, Lee and Rex, who played in our game,
Mm-hmm.
that the peak of GCACW for me are things like Roads to Gettysburg 2,
Yeah.
Stonewall Jackson's Way, where it's more... Antietam and Gettysburg are relatively equal footing, right? Obviously, Union has manpower advantage, things like that. But Petersburg is just, it's the dregs of the Confederate forces.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I'd rather just play Grant Takes Command, where you're still kind of doing the same thing. You still have Richmond as this pivot point. And it's still late war, and you still have Grant doing his thing. But Petersburg, it was very, very good. It's still GCAC. Do not get me wrong.
So actually, I'm glad you mentioned late war, because that reminded me of one other thing. Defensive structures in this game. Yeah. So depending on what year you're playing, you have an entirely different option as far as how much you can build up your defensive structures, which makes early war games feel very different from late war games. I mean, the late war games can almost turn into trench warfare. Yep,
100%. And I think that's also fits well with especially in the Confederates in Grant Takes Command in Petersburg campaign, because it's also kind of that's how it played out. So I think there is some difference. Like, you can break the games out. A lot of it's going to come down to tactics, and it's just not tactics, topics, but as the series as a whole is very cohesive. There's Petersburg may feel different, but it's still very much GCACW. And that's, we didn't do a whole rules overview. I've always said that the rule book seems more obtuse than what the game really is. The game is actually very straightforward.
Yeah, there's the basic rule book, which covers every single game in the series, the basic rules. And then every game in the series, and so in this one, there's 3 more rule books, because there's game specific rules for every single one, and those are going to be, there'll be a few things at the beginning, but it's mostly just all the scenarios are in those. But the advanced rules, the advanced rule book is bigger than just the basic rule book, but you don't need it at all to play except for the scenarios. You don't need it to play the basic scenarios. And most of the scenarios are basic scenarios.
Yep.
There's usually, like, in any game, there's probably 6, 7, 8 basic scenarios and 1 or 2 advanced scenarios. And those are usually the whole campaign.
Yep. Yeah. A scenario might say, see advanced rule, blah, 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 for how to do mine attacks. Like if you're playing the Crater or something like that, or how to handle amphibious or gunboats or something like that, which is all covered in different games where it's applicable. We don't normally talk about this, but I was thinking we should, because we never do. And that's just like components of the game, because war games can have such a difference. And physically, this is a gorgeous and stunning game with great counters.
Yeah, they are great. They look great. There are a lot of informational counters that need to go on every single unit. If that annoys you, that's going to annoy you. So you have to mark the fatigue. You have to mark the strength points. It seems like there's something else too that I'm forgetting, but one counter is going to turn into 3 very quickly, at least. And then joking around. You can have multiple, units in the same stack. So the stacks can get high and it can get a little unwieldy. Oh, we can have things. Yeah. You can flip it over there. There's lots of different information that needs to be tracked for every single unit.
The next time I play this in person, I'm going to print the little sheets out where you track most of that stuff off the map, and you just have the main counter present. Because we made the joke that GCACW on Vassal is a 10 out of 10, and then off Vassal it's not a 10 out of 10, because it's very much. That's why I mentioned I'd bring up Empire of the Sun, which you have always said Empire of the Sun is one of the best Vassal modules. Yeah. Full stop. GCACW on Vassal spoils me, and my last, other than solo play, and I very quickly switched to solo on Vassal for this, my last in-person GCACW was the entire Antietam campaign. And it's not as bad in that situation because you branch out so quickly. You will have big stacks, but once you're playing like the whole map instead of just fixed around Richmond or Petersburg, then the stacks aren't as unruly. But boy, once you're really honed in one spot, you get some big old stacks in one hex. And sometimes, like today, some of those stacks were locked in place for turn 3.
Yeah.
And we replaced them with the die. But if you don't, then it's like, okay, you have this giant, 1-inch tall stack, and it's just there on the map, and you better not knock it over because you're not using it for 2 turns.
Right.
So the components are brilliant.
They also include a counter that says put it on top of this, so you know not to do it till turn 3.
Exactly. So yeah, great components, but boy, is there a lot of them.
Yeah.
And it is Vassal very much spoils GCACW players.
Yeah, I agree.
So here's one thing I wanted to talk about, because I think it's kind of ridiculous. If you miss the pre-order price, do you know off the top of your head? I mean, I know, but do you know?
I'm guessing, is this one $250?
I think it's $220.
$220.
I said
okay.
I knew, but I think it's $220.
Yeah.
So you're getting 3 games, which really I would say you're getting 2.5 games, maybe 2 games.
Okay.
Just because Grant Takes Command and Petersburg share counters. Cost is not directly tied to counters, as our buddy Bill would remind us. But $220 for a GCACW tri-pack is a whole lot of money.
Yep, absolutely. MMP games are getting expensive. This one, another one that I pre-ordered recently was the D-Day game, the one that hasn't come out yet with the Americans. It's expensive games.
It is. And it's hard to... On one hand, I wholeheartedly recommend On to Richmond 2, especially for On to Richmond and Grant Takes Command. But boy, it's really hard for me to recommend a $220 game. I mean, that's just nuts.
Yep.
And I mean, there's so many things that are out of our control. You're playing designers, you're playing artists, you're playing MMPs printed in America. You're getting 30 scenarios. You're getting bang for your buck. But boy, the pre-order price on Roads to Gettysburg 2 was not $180. I think that was the MSRP, but I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember.
And I always said, like, on Roads to Gettysburg 2 was worth $194 is the current MSRP on MMP's website for Roads to Gettysburg 2. So the pre-order price had to be lower than that, obviously. Man, that is, you can go get 3 solid games at any given moment for $220, and probably get some counter trades and throw in some extra shit, right? Like if you're shopping smart. So GCACW is for both of us, one of our favorite series of all time. I don't want to speak for you, but I'm speaking for you because I know that's the case. Yeah.
But that said, to your point, the games are getting more and more expensive. I've got 3 great games in this series.
Yep.
Those 3 great games, they'll get me through for a while. I found myself just, in general, I'm being a lot more careful about the games I buy, just because I'm not spending as much for games that I'm not getting to play as much as I would like to anyway. So,
agree 1,000%. And this isn't a knock against MMP because everyone's doing it. Sometimes it makes sense, sometimes it doesn't. There's the new tri-pack of the Carthage games coming out from GMT. The deluxe edition is like $80 for 3 games, but there's so many things here that like go into factor these decisions that it's not necessarily fair to equate those things. But gosh, why not? Other than Grant Takes Command had awful maps and shit like that. You could, if you wanted to, go track down an older copy of one of the games that got reprinted in the GCACW line. I bet you could pick it up for very cheap now that the new ones have come out. And, you'd be in really, really good shape just playing those. You're not missing out on that much other than new things. Or Are you good just getting by with Stonewall Jackson's Way 2, which you could probably get for around $100? That's only one game, but Stonewall Jackson's Way 2 is a fantastic GCA Civility game. I love that one.
Yeah.
We haven't talked about it, but I don't know. It's just, I just wanted to bring it up because we tend to like the games we play. We have some stinkers on our list, and we've played some stinkers we've talked about, but generally we're playing games we like. And it's very hard for me to tell a listener, hey, go buy this $220 game.
Agreed.
Yeah. So take that into consideration, because let's now move. I guess before we get into it, we talked about our books. I've talked about the Gordon Rea books ad nauseum for the last couple months. What I will just say is I finished the Battle of Wilderness. I'm going to keep going with the series, but they are very, very detailed. I very much enjoyed it. I gave it 5 out of 5. Talked about them in the past. Gordon Rea, there's 5 books covering everything from May through Petersburg. Recommended. Now, the other book we both read, which I've talked about Stephen Sears in the past. He's a great author if you want to read some Civil War stuff. We both read. I'm actually not done with it yet. I'm about halfway through it. To the Gates of Richmond by Stephen Sears.
Yeah, and I mean,
tell us about this one.
It was a great book. I loved it. It was in the sweet spot of this unit in this place versus, throw a few stories in there and things like that. Really hit the sweet spot for me. But as much as any book as I've ever read that I was reading to go with a game, this was very much one that you could put down the map, you could put down counters, and you could act out the book on the map as you go. You're like, oh yeah, this is, Slash Church Road or whatever it's called, and this is the river that they're crossing, and this is the swamp that they were fighting over. And I mean, it's all right there from the map to the book, and it's a great way to read a book and learn and play a game at the same time.
Yep, agreed. A Landscape Turned Red is fantastic, and I've done both audio and physical of Stephen Sears. I would just say, there's a good amount of maps in the physical stuff. That was Landscape Turned Red. I would have liked maybe a couple more, but I think it reads extremely great as both audio or if you're reading in print. But yeah, To the Gates of Richmond is, and that covers you would read that for On to Richmond too. That's covered in the 1862. But boy howdy, listening to the whole story of McClellan's Peninsula campaign is the most frustrating thing.
It's awful.
He's so bad.
And he's such a whiner.
Gosh, he is such a character. I don't know who's worth, McClellan or MacArthur.
I would take MacArthur because at least he got the job done.
Well, that came up with Bill and I. At least that he's not I don't know. Well, I don't know if MacArthur in the same time period, he kind of seems like he'd be as big a douche as McClellan too. Probably big as big. I don't know. Hard to say, but probably. Well, I guess there's actually a lot of stuff about MacArthur being racist, so I'm sure him and McClellan would be buddies.
It was 1862. I think they were all racist.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair, but McClellan was maybe more sympathetic. Well, definitely more sympathetic than others. So yeah, both douchebags in my book, but it's just so mad when Magruder is just holding off the entire Union army with 15,000 troops and just marching back and forth. It's you idiot. And of course the Quaker guns, that's just brilliant when they hold them off at Bull Run by just painting logs.
Actually, so here's one thing from the book. I never knew before that the Confederates used so many balloons for reconnaissance. I learned that from this book.
Well, it's early in the book when they talk about the Union balloon goes up and it becomes untethered and it drifts over Confederate lines and then drifts back. And then shortly thereafter, a Confederate balloon goes up and then drifts over and then comes back. But the deal with the Confederate balloons is they didn't have the fuel to keep them up. So they just they heated them with hot, because I didn't know this either. They heated them with hot air, and then just when the air cooled is when they came down. There was no way to regulate it for the Confederates.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. I never knew that they used balloons that effectively. I mean, maybe not super effectively
in quotations.
But well, to that level in the U.S. Civil War. I mean,
I knew Union forces had used them. I did not know Confederates did, and it's laughable that the technology that they
I know you said you haven't finished the book. Maybe you haven't got to this part yet, but the Confederate Air Force, if you want to call that, ended up they deflated the balloon, they put it on a boat, and the boat got sunk. So that proves to me that Navy's better than Air Force.
I guess so. Okay, so before we start talking about the books, I was going to say, as we get to our final thoughts, keep in mind the $220 price tag.
Yeah. And it's such a good series that you can't go wrong with any of them. I mean, some are better than others, but I mean, we'll rate this one in a minute, but there's a reason that they're all ganged up together there because it's the series that's such a winner. So if you don't have $220, find a cheaper GCACW game and you're going to love it.
Yep. Just know there's been improvements, especially in like map quality and stuff.
Oh, sure. That's for sure.
Things like Grant Takes Command, but there's lots of them, like Stonewall Jackson's Way. The original version of that would be perfectly serviceable, or Stonewall Jackson Way 2. All that being said, On to Richmond 2 for me is just another solid entry in GCACW. Particularly Grant Takes Command is the one I was most excited for. I really just wanted to start kicking ass with Grant. And On to Richmond 2 is a really fun game. I think those are brilliant counterpoints to each other. You have the shit show that is the Union Army in 1862, and then you have Grant returning to the same location, and obviously not everything was smooth sailing at that point. There was lots and lots of attack and then attack again, which is so different than things in like 1862 and 63 and 64. You just look at like Gettysburg or Antietam. You have this big fight, and then there's no Union follow-up. When Grant Takes Command on the peninsula, there's a fight, we lost, and we're going right back in, and we're going to pivot around this side. All right? Maybe that one's a draw. We're going right back in, and that's a particularly interesting area of history. So for me, I do recommend On to Richmond 2, and it's GCACW, and there's 30 scenarios of it here in this book, and it's great.
Cool.
What about you? Any final closing thoughts?
No, I mean, it's a great game. I would recommend it. Like, we've already talked about everything about it, but yeah, the price could be unsettling, and if that's a problem for you, the series is so good, find another one.
Folks, we have a list of every war game ever made, ranked from best to worst.
Best to Zeppelin Raider.
Best to Zeppelin Raider. Right now, US War sits at the top of the list. We've ranked 71 games. This will be game number 72, just for reference points, which we'll probably need. Roads to Gettysburg is our highest rated GCACW game at number 4, and then you have to scroll all the way down to number 5 to find our lowest GCACW game, which is Atlanta is ours. So, I know where I put this, but usually I open my mouth first, so I'll let you you set the tone.
So I will. Obviously, we think it's probably going to be somewhere in that 4 to 5 range. Maybe it won't be, but so the thing that I love so much about Roads to Gettysburg is it's such a perfect sandbox. I mean, you've got this big, huge map. You've got like a road that sort of goes around the whole map, and I've played Roads to Gettysburg campaign a few times, and there's always going to be a big battle, but it's never at Gettysburg because that's just where it happened to be historically. But that wasn't the point of it. The point of it was there was a lot of open land and the armies were going to come together somewhere. That's why I love Roads to Gettysburg more than any of the others. This one actually feels a lot more like Atlanta Is Ours. Atlanta Is Ours is more of a linear game, like it's a long game where you just have to keep going down the road toward Atlanta. And because of the rivers, this one has that same sort of feel. It's more of a narrow game, stay between the rivers, head toward Richmond. That said, this one has more in it than Atlanta Is Ours. Atlanta Is Ours is just a game, although, it's a long one. It'll, if you want to play the full campaign, get comfortable. But I would put this in between the two. I'd put this at number 5 and bump Atlanta as ours down 1.
Rich, we're in total agreement.
All right. There we go.
And our list, and I forgot to mention, our list is 100% objective.
Yeah.
Rich and I clasp our hands together, fire up the mud wheel, put on our blindfolds. Probably not in that order, because that would be hard to do if we were holding hands the entire time. But in some order, we then shape the mud, which is the Every War Game Ever list. I will allow my subjective bias to be inserted this one time. And a lot of it comes down to topic. And the fact that my boy George Thomas is an Army commander in Atlanta as ours and not a division commander, and you don't get to do cool shit with him. So, I mean, Grant takes command is the big deal here for me. I really like what I see in that game. And on to Richmond, too, is just a lot of fun as well. And it's just the fact that this has more in it. Atlanta's ours is rock solid, though. Yeah. It's about to be number 6.
Yeah.
So if you're an Atlanta's ours fan, don't get upset about it, because you're still in the top 10. But we're in agreement. Cool. Number 5 game of all time, ranked on number 52, is on to Richmond 2. All right, folks. We did things a little bit different this month because we knew we were going to be recording at the end of the month. Normally, what we do is Rich and I will stump for our preferred games for the following month. You can then go to patreon.com/historytable, become a patron, and you can vote in our monthly poll. We already did the stumping. That offline, knowing that we had a shortfall of time, we already know what we're playing in October. And Rich, the year of naval wargaming is back, baby.
All right. Yes. Old school naval wargaming.
Finally happened. I think you stumped for this 2 months ago and didn't win.
I think I did it I think I have asked for it twice as well. So
it's finally here.
All things come back around. We're going to play Flying Colors.
And this worked out beautifully because next month at the Kansas City Historical Gaming Group, we will be playing Flying Colors as our featured series. So, Flying Colors from GMT. There's now several games in this series, and there's a newish set of rules out. So another series game, but we'll primarily focus on Flying Colors, the first one. So sweet. Yeah, naval gaming.
So after that, we've only got 2 episodes left this year.
Yeah.
December will be the revisit the list, right?
Yeah, and you know what next month will be?
No, that's what I was trying to remember, actually.
Next month will be the top 20 games.
Oh, that's
right. The listener top 20 games and our top 20 games. Yeah. So let's get some details on that out of the way real quick, and then we'll open up the patron mailbag. We got a good question tonight. But yes, it seems to be that time of year where every other online group and every other Discord and every other podcast is doing their top 20 games of all time. So why shouldn't we? I'm gonna try to clean up the rules a little bit this year and just condense some things that it makes sense to condense. I'll open this up to feedback, but we'll have all month to decide because am I jumping the gun too early? I am. November's episode will be our top 20, right?
Yeah, that's what I thought when you said next month, because we won't have a patron. We won't have a patron pick.
We'll have a pick. We'll have a pick. We should. I don't see why not, unless things get crazy in November for us.
Okay.
I'm jumping the gun here a little bit, which is why it wasn't in the show notes. We have 3 episodes left. I think you saying we have 2 more left, in my mind, I just completely cut off October.
Yeah, so I was thinking of two patron games left, possibly. Yes. Although we don't do one in December, I think.
No, we probably won't, just because we'll have so much to talk about. Flying Colors, October. Patron pick in November. November's episode will also be our top 20. So we'll do it after everyone else has done it, when everyone's already spent and already made their list, and they can just very quickly submit it to ours.
Cool. So should we stump for November then?
Not yet.
All right.
No, we'll do that offline.
Okay.
So, yeah, okay. Short of it is, after all that rigmarole, folks, we're playing Flying Colors next month, and I'm excited.
Yeah.
All right, Rich, we have a question from not you, but Rich H.
All right. You want me to read
it? I'll read it. You can answer first. What are our guilty pleasure games? Games that are probably not that good, but we still enjoy.
Are we limiting this to war games?
Unless you... No, I don't see why not. But
Okay.
I mean, if you have a war game, that's bonus points, right?
All right. Well, I've got a war game in mind anyway.
Okay.
I don't think it's like super highly regarded by a lot of people. It's a coin game, but for me, it's Falling Sky, which is the the Rome versus Gaul war game or coin game. It was the first coin game I ever played. I still really love it. I love the balance between the four factions. I think it plays really well. It's fun to me. I really enjoy that one. And it never comes up in a list of like the good coin games. You know, it's not like up there with like Fire in the Lake, but it's one that I will always enjoy.
Rich, turn the music back on.
Which music were we playing?
All right, we'll turn it back off. Let me tell you about the good word that is. Now, this game is amazing. And really, is it a guilty pleasure? No, because I'm never guilty about the good dick. And that is Dutch Inner City. Now,
there's some controversy about the...
What do you mean?
Am I seeing that this new version is not the same game?
No, it's the same game. It's just new art. It'll be new art. Yeah, it should be the same game.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. Now, Dutch Inner City still has a 7 on Board Game Geek. But, so, is it a guilty pleasure? No. But if we're going like mechanically on what my biggest spread is in BGG ratings versus my ratings... Dutch Inner City for me is a 10. I got corrected on Twitter yesterday when I said it's one of the best games of all time. Someone said it's not one of the best games of all time. I disagree. It is one of the best games of all time. Do I feel guilty about playing it? No, not even in the slightest. It is phenomenal. I play a lot of games, and I play a lot of family games, and I thoroughly enjoy Ticket to Ride. Things like just straight up old school Ticket to Ride. Love it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of the best selling games of all time. I shouldn't feel guilty about that in any way. I don't know if I really have one outside of that. You know, we played like a good amount of good old fashioned spades. You know, trick tickers are the new hot thing, but still love good old spades. I don't know. I liked ATS for a little bit. I don't play it anymore. I guess I should feel guilty about that because it's ATS.
I guess one other thing on the list that probably legitimately is not a good game is Thanos Rising.
Oh, I don't know if I heard you talk about this on here or back on
probably
Chance
back
Gaming,
on
but
Chance
I remember
Gaming.
you mentioned this.
Yeah,
one.
so it is not a good game, but it's fun, and I play it with the kids, and you collect the Marvel heroes and you try to beat up against the bad guys, and it's like I said, it's just really not that good a game, but it's fun, and I like playing that one with the family. And there's even another version. I think it's Voldemort Rising, same thing, but with Harry Potter. So they've just reskinned it. But for whatever reason, I like the Thanos one better. I like the Marvel better than Harry Potter.
Yeah, I'm looking behind me and like all this stuff that I'm like, I don't think other people would like that. I think has redeemable qualities. Like I think 1754 is not for most war gamers, but I've talked about that game a lot. I think that's a great game. I don't know if I have one because I feel like even though some people may like, I like Segmeier games, which are massively popular in the board gaming sphere, not as much so in the historical gaming sphere. Like Red Rising is not everyone's favorite cup of tea. I feel like I can have a redeeming quality in a lot of those games and not shit. I don't feel guilty about any of that shit.
Sure. So don't feel guilty. Play your games.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
You and I are both
like what you
drink about games.
Drink what you want to drink, like what you want to like, play what you want to like. I don't care. You do you. And I get the question, but I don't know. Mechanically, Operation Pegasus is flawed. Okay, it's dated. It's 40 years old. I've talked about that one. So like, the mass public doesn't know about it. It desperately needs an update. But I legitimately like playing Operation Pegasus. So there's one that is a game that probably is not good in today's standards. It desperately needs some update, but it probably fits that. Not a guilty pleasure game, but a game that's not quote unquote good or mechanically sound. So there you go, Rich. Thank you for the question. If you want to send us some mail for the Patron mail, join our Patreon, hop in the Discord, do all that stuff, give us some questions. Okay, Richard, before we get completely off the table, we did have, it's been a while since we've talked about one. Did you catch last week's GMT monthly update?
I did, yeah. I think the thing that jumped out at me the most was the new Levy and Campaign game.
That was the Ippo. That's the Sicily one.
It's from like year 400 or something like that.
That's it.
I want to say older. It's a new game, but older in time. So that was the thing that jumped out at me the most, I think.
Yeah, good. Yeah, nothing was like, ooh, I got to get that or anything like that. I did think it was interesting that Mr. President had a second edition. I'm not gonna touch that.
Yeah, I've seen people put it on the table, and it takes up a whole lot of table space.
Yeah, I meant I'm not going to touch in the fact that it already has a second edition. I don't know why it does, but
yeah, because that one, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, I mean it just came out, but I mean I guess good thing they're supporting it.
Epipole is the game I was talking about. The Athenian expedition in Sicily.
So some immediate upcoming stuff. We have Downfall, which was designed by Chad Jensen and John Butterfield before Chad Jensen died. That looks interesting. I'll always check out a Chad Jensen game. And I'm just looking real quick. Oh, Last 100 Yards Russian Front. That is next charging and shipment. I think I mentioned that at first Russian Front was not in my order, but after playing it, it very quickly slid in. So I'm very excited for that. And that's about... Tanamato sounds cool. A lot of this stuff is just stuff I want to play that it's not necessarily going to... Oh, Men of Iron Volume 5 is coming out. It's at the printer. So that's okay, good. Soon as well.
Yeah, I'll be getting that one.
Hell yeah. Anything else from the update catch your
eye? No. And I don't even think I'll pre-order it, but the Levian campaign was the one that jumped out at me.
Yeah, very, very cool. All right, folks, take all those GCACW maps and shove them on the ground because it's getting spooky in here, folks.
You can hide underneath them.
So, Rich, you have not started any spooky season stuff? Is that?
I've not read anything. I did see a pretty good spooky movie a week or two ago, but
Tell me more. Do you want to talk about it? Was it good enough to mention?
Yeah, it was good enough to mention. It was called Insidious. Have you heard of this one?
Oh, yeah.
It's part of actually a series, so we'll continue on with it. But we're always, I think I've mentioned this before, I'm always looking for stuff to watch with my daughter that is not gory, but it's scary. And this was a good one that fit the bill there. So very good. The jump scares were great. We enjoyed it so much that when my... I think my wife was out somewhere and my daughter and I watched it together. And when she came back home the next night, we watched it again so my wife could see it. And it was funny because like the jump scares, excuse me, my daughter and my wife jumped at the same part again. So it was good stuff.
Did you get a chance to listen to Sayer with your family?
No, no.
Okay.
I've not done that yet.
So I'll mention that one up. That was mentioned by Rob over on our Discord. He recommended Sayer, which is a sci-fi, not overly horror, but definitely some spooky vibes going on. He mentioned he listened to it while he is running, and I started doing the same thing. It is great so far, and I can't remember if I mentioned Magnus Archives or not. It's by the same production. It's on the same podcast.
We have talked about it before.
Okay, all right. I couldn't remember, and that one continues to be good, and I'll be interested to see how that all comes together. But the one thing I have not mentioned yet that I have absolutely loved is a collection of 2 stories. And I just about finished this afternoon while I was cleaning up the house, the second one. And that is A Lush and Seething Hell, 2 Tales of Cosmic Horror by John Horner Jacobs. The first one, and I will not reveal any spoilers here. This book came out about 3 years ago, something like that. The first one is a story about like a revolution in a fictional country in South America, and some people who fled that country that get drawn back into that country, and I'll leave it there. It's a very good, creepy Cthulhu, Lovecraftian cosmic horror vibe. And the next one is very particularly interesting, I think, is My Heart Struck in Sorrow is someone who works at the Library of Congress that is collecting old folk songs and is following the footsteps of another individual who did the same thing in the 30s, which was an actual project of the Library of Congress. And it's all stemmed in tracking down these folk songs and the cosmic horrors surrounding those. I really have enjoyed both of these stories. And that's by John Horner Jacobs, A Lush and Seething Hell. Highly recommended. It's been a great spooky season read. I would say do not listen to that one with your teenage daughters. It is very, very graphic at times. Both in the descriptions of some awful things that happen and just like it's sexualized at times. It doesn't bother me at all. I just want to listen to it with my kids. So there you go.
Cool.
Love it. Yeah, I'm really, really digging it.
Yeah. Well, it is almost October, so I'll be looking for something.
Yeah, I recommend it. It's on Hoopla too, so if you have
nice.
that, you can. Now, is Fall of the House of Usher out yet? Do you know?
I don't know. I remember hearing about it, but I don't know if it's out.
I don't know if it's out either. We actually don't have Netflix right now. First episode drops on October 12th, so that is the new Mike Flanagan show.
Okay.
Which we've talked about how we're huge fans of Mike Flanagan, especially I think both of us the first 3 shows. I'd say I never saw the 4th one. You didn't watch Midnight Club?
No, haven't seen it.
Okay, we didn't.
My older daughter did. I mean, and she enjoyed it. But I've had actually a couple people tell me that like younger people will appreciate that one more than someone my age.
I can see that. I mean, it's rare for us to not finish something like that, and we just dropped it cold. I think I might rewatch Haunting of the Hill House once if we re-up for Netflix, then I think I'll like really want to dive into that. But yeah, Fall of the House of Usher, the trailers I've watched looks fantastic. Good. Any other spooky stuff?
Nah.
All right, Rich, I'm going to do something we haven't done in a while. I'm going to talk about a Euro game.
Okay.
That's how good this is. Have you played Race for the Galaxy? That's not what I'm talking about, but...
Yes, I have.
Okay, so you're familiar. For those who aren't familiar, if Rich performs an action, and let's say he does the explore action, he gets to draw like 5 cards and keep a certain amount. I do a lesser version of the action that Rich chose. And if we both choose the same action, we get to do the same thing. Earth is very much in that same vein, and it is one of the best Euro games I've played in quite a few years. You are planting trees, and you're trying to meet certain objectives cards. But if I take the action to plant trees, I'll plant 2 trees, and Rich, you'll be able to plant 1 tree. But that tree planting action is associated with the color green. So you look on your tableau, and you look at the plants and cards you've planted, and whether you took the action or not, you get to do every green action on your tableau. So it has that Race for the Galaxy of lead and follow mechanic, but then it also has, you're constantly engaged because you're looking at your tableau like, oh, if my wife takes red, like, yeah, take red so I can get some dirt, and then I get to do XYZ, boom, 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 boom. And everyone's just kind of doing this stuff. I really, really like and highly recommend Earth. It's one of the best Euro games I've played in some time.
Nice. We'll need to get that
I
one
mean,
on
other
BGA.
than like new Euro games. We play a lot of our favorite Euro games all the time. Like I've got a Feast for Odin going constantly on BGA, but like a new release Euro game, it is phenomenal. Sorry, what was your question?
I said we need to get that on BGA.
It is on BGA.
Oh, is it?
I'll gladly fire a game up.
Yeah, let's do that then. I have not played anything on BGA in a while.
Okay, let's fire it up because so the rule book, you can look at it. I don't know if there's like a watch it played, but if you understand that basic, like Matt does an action, I'm going to do the same action but lesser, but then I get to do every red colored action on my tableau. Mm-hmm. You kind of have the game. There's like scoring cards that like objectives. The first one to do it gets the most points, and there's some scoring things that are like, this is true for everyone at the end of the game, and that's kind of the game. And the rule book is, the rules are, I don't know, 6 pages with full color examples. It's not hard to grasp, but there's like 200 cards in the game, so you're always like seeing different stuff. I really, really like it.
Cool. Yeah, I will check that out.
Awesome. You got anything else you want to talk about tonight, Rich?
I don't have anything. I'm singing in a couple weeks. Yeah, St. Louis Historical Gaming Day. I'm actually going to be able to make it this month, I think. So that's on the 21st, and I don't know what I'm going to play yet. Maybe Flying Colors.
Nice. We will be playing Flying Colors on the 28th. It's a Saturday that morning, starting at 10 a.m. At Tabletop/Cardboard Cafe. We play the last Saturday of every month, and we're trying this new thing where we feature a series. So this month with GCCW, next month will be Flying Colors. We talked about Men of Iron. There's a whole bunch of stuff on the horizon. Pretty excited for it. Good. Anything else, sir?
No, I don't think so. I know we've been trying to find a time to get together for a Columbia game, but schedules are proving difficult.
Yeah, schedules are always difficult, and little ones only complicate it.
Yeah.
But folks, thank you for taking the time to fit us into your schedule. Look at that segue. If you want more of us in your schedule, the number one place to interact with us is over on the History on the Table Discord. There will be a link down in the show notes. Pop in, come say hey, join in the game. Ross on our Discord fired up a game of Nevsky with me, the full campaign. And we've had some great battles, and it's also been it's one of my Nevsky games that isn't ending surprisingly early because someone forgot to leave.
All your units are going home.
Yeah, exactly. So it's you know what? I just clicked over. This is so funny. I just clicked over, and it's look, we're not making mistakes. And I just realized that Andreas just reached his service limit, and he had 2 knights, 2 men-at-arms, and 2 sergeants. He was my main guy in the midst of a siege, and I completely bungled it. Look at that. Still making mistakes. Anyways, join the Discord. We're on the socials if you really want to interact there, but Discord's the best place. Anything else, Rich?
No, nothing else from me.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.